Hey everyone, welcome back to another recap podcast from SNXweave, where we give quick weekly recaps of news and important updates from the previous week from the Spartan Council and core contributors, as well as discuss what the Grants Council and ambassadors are up to, so let's get started. First up, the SCADAR release went out last week, which implemented SIP 255. Now, users will no longer claim their pro rata distribution of trading fees. Instead, fees will be burned to decrease debt for stakers. But don't worry, inflationary rewards will still be claimed weekly. When claiming, stakers will be shown the number of SNX and SUSD debt burned. In V3 updates, the Council discussed the migration plan. The current plan is to stand up V3, then begin plugging in markets from V2. Liquidity providers will be able to transition to V3 and continue to back everything that currently exists in V2 in a single transaction. The first phase of audit feedback has been received, processed, and returned to auditors for review of the fixes. One of the other auditors will have a formal report ready by next week, but most of the feedback is processed already. This should allow V3 to be deployed to Optimism and mainnet this week without any markets plugged in, and would represent the first major V3 milestone. From there, the broader rollout plan will have to go through some additional governance steps. Some CCs will be traveling for ETH Denver this week, and the goal is to have V3 deployed before then. Tara then asked what still needs to be done to unwind the DAI wrapper, and it was answered that once V3 spot markets are live with liquidity, the SUSD created from that could be used to unwind the wrapper. The delivery for this is still on track for April or May. As far as Perps V2 updates, there are still some final changes being made, but they are mostly just internal quality of life upgrades. The team is also starting to discuss what types of additional features might be in Perps V3. Tara questioned whether it would be possible to release new markets more gradually and target marketing towards specific communities as those offerings go live. Caleb suggested that assets could be deployed as they're ready and paused until the marketing catches up. Mike is also working on this with other front ends to make sure all of the incentives appropriately align for the releases. This also ties into SIP 2003 for Perps V2 trading incentives, which was voted yes symbolically by the Spartan Council but is still up to the Treasury Council to implement. There were also several SIP presentations last week, so let's briefly review them. The first was SIP 296 for OTEX CowSwap cross-asset swaps. This SIP proposes adding the OTEX CowSwap solver contracts to the Direct Integration Manager. CowSwap works by connecting users and solvers, where users submit orders and solvers seek out bids for that trade at the best possible price. This creates competition among solvers to deliver that best possible price to users. OTEX is one of those solvers and are currently one of the biggest solvers on CowSwap, and they plan to use synthetics to fill some of those trades. One of the key advantages of integrating with CowSwap is the way their service works. There's a 1-block delay on price fills, which reduces the possibility of latency attacks. Tara asked if OTEX has a history of executing large transactions. Caleb said we can probably expect larger trades of over $2 million to be routed through this mechanism, because the gas is too high for it to make financial sense on smaller trades. Synthetic's competitive advantage would be on these larger transactions, and the SIP has been implemented with 7 votes in favor. The next presentation was SIP 308 for market-provided collateral in V3. This SIP proposes adding functionality that allows markets to increase their credit in the system by depositing collateral directly in the protocol, so essentially wrappers in V3. For increased scalability, markets should be able to issue debt in exchange for collateral at a 1-to-1 ratio under specific circumstances. This can also be used for multi-collateral margined perps. Even though V3 may eventually allow permissionless pool creation pending governance approval, this functionality would only be allowed within governance-approved pools and only support liquidity for the stablecoin. Caleb asked how leverage factors into the use of wrappers, and Afif explained that markets will be designed to only take on a small amount of exposure in either direction, similar to Perps V2 markets. This SIP was approved with 6 votes in favor. The next presentation was SIP 309 for market-locked collateral in V3. This SIP, presented by Noah, proposes adding functionality that allows markets to prevent withdrawal of delegated collateral. This functionality allows a market to specify an amount of dollar-denominated credit under which pools are unable to remove the collateral or liquidity they're providing to it. This would introduce a base level of liquidity for markets that could not be removed to prevent them from going insolvent. This is just a possible feature that can be used, and the default value would be 0, but this SIP has been voted on and approved with 7 votes in favor. The last presentation was SIP 310 for feature flags in v3. This SIP proposes allowing specific functions to be restricted with a feature flag, where only SCCP specified addresses are able to call them. This is pretty similar to SIP 316, except instead of controls for turning things off, it's about turning things on over time. This is a generalized interface for attaching new markets, creating pools, and performing other functions planned for v3. Initially, only the Spartan Council will be able to use these features, and the SIP has been voted on and approved with 6 votes in favor and 1 against. In Grants Council updates, there's a new bot coming your way. This will be an information bot with info regarding funding rates and more. Alexander is in the process of contacting a developer, and the team is thinking about a possible collaboration with Quenta, Decentrex, and other front ends with any available chat feeds on their UI. More to come here. The council also discussed the NFT project, and here are the updates. Anna is working on the structure for the naming convention for the traits. The developers provided a spreadsheet with lots of fields and names to fix, and the finalization of the lore with the new author is in progress. They're also working on a community governance repository, which will have 3 stages. The first is writing up a document, the second is creating a wiki for the document, and third is integrating it into a formal governance process. JVK will be leading the charge for the first stage right now, and is writing up a budget for this week's meeting. Lastly, the team is still working on getting the Dune stats into graphical format, and is reviewing areas of synthetics that could be improved to make it easier for new DAO members to get involved. And that's it for today's updates. Be sure to check out our weekly recap blog post, share this podcast link, and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear more about from SNXweave. Thanks for listening.